Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, January 4th, 2026. That's right. Happy New Year. Welcome to the program, everybody. It is a great night for Hockey Night in New York. Big show coming up for you tonight. Jonny Lazarus of Daily Faceoff will be joining us. Sitting in with me tonight is Mr. Arthur Staple. Arthur, how are you? Happy New Year. What's going on, man?
Happy New Year to you. All good here. Excited to talk some hockey. Had a couple of exciting games to talk about.
Yeah.
One in particular that I'm sure everyone knows probably still buzzing about too.
Probably get to that. Yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York here live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. Before we dive into the fun stuff, I want to remind you all that we are proud to be sponsored by Knock Hockey. That's right, the all-time American-made classic. Get your board at knockhockey.com. That is N-O-K hockey.com. We're also proud to be sponsored by Razor, Kniff, and Launstein, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And if you're hanging out with us live in the chat, you want to get your questions in later, just type in Questions Brewing, followed by your question, and we will answer it later in the show. Now, Arthur, let's talk about some hockey games here.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the results here, actually. 2-2 week for the Islanders. They're now 23-15-4 with 50 points, sitting second in the Metro, a point behind Carolina, but only like 4 points clear of the playoff cutoff line. We are into the 2026 calendar year, sitting in second place in the Metro, and still not clearly safe at all.
No, could be in 16th if you have a bad couple
week,
of weeks.
Man. Yeah.
So you don't even want to look at the standings. I feel like it's hard not to do, but you just got to get some points. You just got to go out there and win some games. Doesn't matter how, overtime, shootout, just pile up the points like we talk about and keep the laser focused on your own process. I think for the Islanders, it's been something that they've been ingrained in, whether it was Barry Trotz, now Patrick Waugh. Win the games, control what you can control, and I think so far so good for them.
Yeah, and they did get some points this week. However, they didn't get any on Sunday against the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Well, yes. I don't mean to cut you off, but that feels like it was secondary to what really happened. It's kind of a funny bookend to the week with obviously Mason Marchment trying to target Matthew Schaefer a couple of times.
Not a nice guy.
A pretty sneaky kind of... You don't even call it a slew foot because it's an open ice. It was kind of like a slash and a knee kind of combined, He
definitely angled himself towards Schaefer's
Mason
leg.
Marchment knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think when people are doing that in open ice to Matthew Schaefer, we know what they're doing. It's very apparent.
Right.
We even saw it in the game last night. Max Domi, everybody's trying to take a piece of him because they know what he can do. Mm-hmm. And obviously what Matthew Barzal did in the wake of that with the big baseball swing at Mason Marchment's ankle, which,
I likened it more to a golf swing, Arthur.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay.
It was good contact either way.
Yes, did make contact. That's true.
And thrown out of the game. Justified, I would say. It was a big swing.
Yeah.
But to see that...
$5,000 fine.
See that from Matthew Barzal, I think you take the loss in that game. They were really worn out. It was the end of a 3-4.
Right.
David Riddick had played a lot back-to-back. He gave up a bad one in the third. So you move on from that, but I think what you can take away from it is when you see Matthew Barzal, the second or third most important player on the team, a guy who you want out there, especially if you don't have Bo Horvat, who was in that game but is now out again. You just you love to see it, and I don't I don't condone the violence and the extracurricular
It's a weird place
stuff,
to be in. Yes,
but if guys are going to mess with Schaefer, and we've seen it, we've talked about it, whether it was Anthony Duclair a couple of times, it's been guys you wouldn't expect. And I think Barzy said it best afterwards, which is he's an 18-year-old kid. He's our guy. If you're going to mess with him, someone's going to come for you.
Yes,
and it does lead into that, like, do they need an enforcer? That whole conversation,
right.
And really, I think you get more encouraged, and as an Islander player, and maybe even as a fan, instead of sending a goon out there to go punch somebody, you have Matthew Barzal sacrificing the rest of his game and possibly
Right.
instigating something
Right.
on behalf of this kid, being a leader. So I think you don't need it. You don't need an enforcer. You need more guys who are going to be willing to jump into the fight and exact some revenge for anyone that's going to target Matthew Schaefer.
Yeah, and I guess that's the question, right? Like, is that an indictment on some of the other Islanders that were on the ice, that it took Matt Barzal being the guy to exact some revenge on Marchment? You know what I mean? Somebody else should have stepped in before that, because, like, I know Pullett kind of went towards him. He didn't really get him. But, you know, I think the Islanders probably win that game if Barzal stays in. Now, I'm with you in that. I love it from him. I love that he did it. Love to see that fire and that he's going to stick up for Schaefer. That's great. But at the same time, like you said, one of the top important guys on this team, not a guy you want exiting a game, halfway through? I think it was the top of the second period there, right? Yeah. So, you know, that probably could have had a different result if it was, say, somebody else.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And you know, you did have some guys out there. Anders Lee was out there. He's a guy who's been known to drop the gloves. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the thing with Mason Marchment is he's got that kind of rat behavior. This is rat stuff.
Yes,
I don't mean to completely call him out, but when you're doing that kind of stuff in open ice, way away from the puck, I think if a referee was staring at that, he'd be in danger of getting 5 in a game. It's a dangerous play. Mm-hmm. And guys who do that kind of stuff are not ready to drop the gloves. You don't have to drop the gloves these days to answer for those kinds of things. So to me, I understand the instinct that Matthew Barzal had, and maybe somebody else. I don't think that's the kind of thing that you'll see Anders Lee do. I don't think that's the kind of thing you'll see Ryan Pullach do.
Right.
Matthew Barzal is not going to drop the gloves.
Right.
Matthew Barzal is going to do what he did.
Yes,
which
that's a fair point.
Take a swing and step back. So I kind of feel like you respond to rat behavior with other kind of like...
You can't let it go.
Yeah.
You can't let it go.
You have to kind of... If someone's crossing the line, you cross the line back to them. That's kind of the hockey code.
Right. The
hockey code... Not really anymore, is that like anybody on the ice is going to have to drop the gloves if they do something to one of our good players. It doesn't work like that anymore. So I feel like the response was appropriate. The punishment was appropriate. I thought he didn't deserve to get suspended either. The fine was probably good enough because he missed most of that game. And it obviously, like you said, had an effect on the outcome of the game. So I just think the result of it for the Islanders in terms of an emotional kind of coming together, and also guys who have played with Matthew Barzal for a long time saying like, look at this guy. He's not the kid anymore. He's the big brother.
Right.
He was the little brother in that room for so long.
Yeah.
And you know, he used to take a lot of grief from guys like Cal Clutterbuck and Matt Martin, kind of trying to keep him humble because he's a very confident, cocky young guy from the time he came in. But now he's the guy that needs to be the one that's standing up for his teammates, and he did it. And good on him, and I think that bodes well for the future of this kind of Barzy-Schaefer partnership.
And last note on that whole situation, I threw this out on Twitter. Now, do you think if Schaefer doesn't get up after that hit from Marchment and he's hurt and he goes to the dressing room, he goes to the bench, does Marchment get any more than he got?
Yes, he gets thrown out of
the
game.
And now, isn't that just there's something backwards about that, right?
We've had this debate for years, and talking to people in the league, I know people at player safety. It's a very, very difficult job to legislate this game because guys are trying to kill each other.
And tell a guy you meant to hurt this guy.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
That, to me, was very clear, and I think guys who have played hockey a long time can recognize Mason Marchment isn't doing something that you normally do. Like, even when you have a knee-on-knee hit in open ice, you can say, okay, guy was trying to lead with his shoulder, and he misses, and his leg is planted,
for sure.
and it can be an accident.
Yeah.
When you are... The puck is gone. You take your stick. You're over his knee, and you're also sticking your foot out. You're trying to do something that's not a natural hockey play.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think people notice it.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily going to get suspended for it because they do certainly make their rulings based on results.
Yeah.
And I wish that they wouldn't, and I wish that the GMs would change that. And I've said it for years. I remember I used to talk to John Tavares about this stuff all the time.
Who?
Because when he was with the Islanders and we'd see him get targeted or someone else or a hit to the head or whatever, he was very much a part of the Players Association groups that would talk about how can we change this thing, because it's also a lot of this punishment is collectively bargained between the players and the league. And if there's no appetite for the players to stop wanting to hit each other in the head or do things like this, then you do have to legislate it on the ice. You do have to be judge and jury if you're Matthew Barzal or whoever, because you can't rely on the league to suddenly say, like, okay, we're going to change the way we've done this for years and years and say, he meant to hurt him, he just didn't, and he should get 5 games or 10 games. And also, if he does get hurt, what does 5 or 10 games mean? Nothing.
Right.
You've lost your best player.
Right.
So I feel like it's a violent sport. It moves super fast.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that player safety gets a lot of grief. It's an impossible job. And it's partly impossible because of the way the rules are written. And I think the way that the rules have been written around suspensions is if someone gets hurt, that's going to be a worse outcome. And frankly, Matthew Barzal, he's taken a big swing at Mason Marchman's leg. There's padding there.
Right.
He's not going to break Mason Marchman's ankle with that swing.
Right.
So, I think that's another reason why he didn't get suspended, because that.
Yeah, at least they got that right.
Yeah.
So, for sure.
So that we could go on and on about this, but I feel like if you are going to be targeting Matthew Schaefer with dirty plays, enforcer, whatever, just you go back at the guy, whoever it is, the closest guy to him says, and if it's a 2-handed slash across the arm, if the next time they play Columbus and Mason Marchman does that again, then you slash him where he doesn't have padding, and you put him at risk of being hurt because he's trying to be a little too obvious about this.
Right. Eye for an eye.
Yeah.
All right, well, that ended in a 4-2 loss.
Right. Uneventful otherwise.
Right. Isles had a 2-1 lead. Columbus scored 2 quick goals, take the 3-2 lead. The last one was probably one Riddick wanted to have back, that phrase that I hate. And they end up losing the 2 points, and when we move on. Tuesday, Chicago, 3-2 shootout win. As far as I'm concerned, the Islanders were lucky to get out of Chicago with 2 points in that game.
That was kind of a forgettable performance, I think.
Yes.
Except for David Riddick, who was really good.
Yes. Go up 2-0, give up 2 goals in the second period, hang on for dear life, almost gave it up in regulation.
Yeah.
And Riddick was a hero in the shootout.
Yeah, it was kind of, a long string of games that they've had kind of since that Tampa game, the first game that Bo Horvat missed. Starting off well, a good first 10, 11 minutes. Yep. They got some goals, and then just kind of, they're not sitting back on purpose, but it just seems like they don't generate enough, and they're starting to get on their heels, and needed to be bailed out by David Riddick, which he did. He did. Big save, Dave. Yeah. Yes. Well, at least until the next game. Right. Moving on to Thursday, New Year's Day, January 1st. Nothing happened that night at all. No, that was a 7-2, 3 o'clock afternoon game there? It was, yeah. The good news, I guess, is that this hasn't happened often this season. But this looked like a team that either had a really good night on New Year's, or they just kind of sputtered out here. It just wasn't their night. They got Dylan Gunther and Mammoth. He had the hat trick there. Riddick was pulled after 5 goals on 14 shots. Hogberg came in. He let in 2 of his own. And the worst news, of course, from that night was Bo Horvat got hurt again. Yeah, and it kind of, it looked like it didn't look similar to the one that he was hurt against. Anaheim looked really bad, and I think they lucked out that it was only a couple of 2 to 3 weeks, whatever it ended up being. Mm-hmm. This one sort of looked like it just kind of got backed into awkward collision with the Utah player kind of backing into his knee, and his leg was extended in a tough spot. Mm-hmm. So you hope it's the same sort of thing. The Islanders seem he's skating already, so I think that's a good sign. If it's a week, 10 days, coming on the heels of him being named to Team Canada for the Olympics, which is a huge honor. Yes. You hate to see that and kind of worry about his spot there, but seems like he's going to be okay. Great for him to go to Milan. I think he's going to be the only Islander representative going, unless there's some injuries and Matthew Schaefer climbs in, or one of the Swedish players gets on. So yeah, and I think we've seen too, with the way that he's played since he came back, just how important he is to the offense. Other than last night, they really just don't score a lot and don't generate a lot without him there, because he's their best finisher. He really evens out the lines really well, especially in the top 6. So yeah, that was a tough blow, especially in a night when they didn't seem to have it. It was again one of those games, 10-0 in shots in the first 10 minutes, nothing to show for it. Not a lot of high danger, but they had the puck a lot. Felt like, okay, we can build on this, and then they kind of sputtered out to the end of the first, no goals, and then Utah seemed to score on every chance they had. So it just was one of those nights, and Riddick, can't fault him for kind of hitting the wall a little bit after 5 in his 5th straight start. So and the thing you wanted to see coming out of that was, could they put it behind them and have a good effort on Saturday against Toronto?
And they did.
Well,
however,
yeah, a few of them did.
We're going to have to hit the pause button on that, though, because we got Johnny coming on.
That's right.
So, folks, want to thank you all for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York. When we come back on the other side, Johnny Lazarus of Daily Faceoff will be joining us. We'll be right back.
Remember the game Knock Hockey from when we were kids? It's an absolute legendary game that they stopped making a couple years ago. However, it's back, baby. You can go to knockhockey.com, that's N-O-K hockey.com, and get it for your kids or your nieces and nephews or some random neighborhood kid, because they're all going to need it, because otherwise they're going to be playing video games for the next 6 months. And if you don't have kids, get it for yourself, or better yet, your girlfriend. She'll be hurt and confused at first, but once she starts slamming that puck around, she's going to love you forever, or at least the game. Go to knockhockey.com. It's a little pricey, I'm not going to lie, but it's made with real wood by hand in Michigan. When's the last time you heard of a product being made like that? This holiday season, be an absolute legend, make everyone happy, bring the family together. Go to knockhockey.com.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest, and Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Hope you enjoyed the ads. Now let's get back to Hockey Night in New York.
Yes, indeed. Let's get back to Hockey Night New York. It is time for On the Line, presented by Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein, attorneys at law. And join us right now from Daily Faceoff, also the host of Morning Cup of Hockey and part of the Tri-State Hockey Podcast, Mr. Johnny Lazarus. Johnny, thanks for joining us, bud. How you been, man?
I'm good. Thanks, Sean. I can't believe Arthur is voluntarily choosing to talk to me any more than he has to do. So it's an honor to be here. I love what you guys do. And yeah, what a fun Saturday night it was for Islander fans, huh?
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Before we dive into that, just how's everything going at Daily Faceoff, Cup of Hockey? How's it talking to this guy on the Tri-State pod? How's everything going, man?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, no one loves to give me more shit than Colby Cohen and Arthur Staple, and to talk to them pretty much every day really humbles me and allows me to get creative. And I love doing what I do. It's a blessing to talk hockey every day. And, I there's not much more I can say. It's a dream. And yeah, it should be a fun rest of the season after that Ranger win in Florida. So excited to see how the Rangers, Devils, and Islanders shape up here in the last, 40 plus games or 35 plus games of the season.
Yeah, man. How was the Winter Classic down in Miami?
You want to talk Rangers? Is that why you're
for like 2.5 minutes?
Okay. It was awesome. Honestly, I know people had, their negative opinions about the Winter Classic being played in Florida. And yeah, it was like 60 degrees at puck drop, but any outdoor game, anywhere they want to put it, sign me up. I've been to, I think 5 or 6 now of the outdoor games, 4 Winter Classics and a couple Stadium Series games. And every single time I have a blast. I think it's so cool when you got, 35,000 plus fans gathering in one place. There's so many cool festivities going on outside, and you get a split fan base, right? You got 50% of each fan base represented at the games. It's just a really cool event. And, I know fans were complaining that it maybe had gotten old, in the past couple of years, and that's why they tried to do something different and bring it to Florida. And I thought Will Cooley said it best too, that Florida, with their recent success, they earned the right to have an outdoor game. And, I think any team, any city, that's playing well, I think it's a great reward to give your fans an outdoor game. And maybe that's how they're going to treat Winter Classics and Stadium Series moving forward, is the teams that, have put together a good 3 years, they'll be gifted an outdoor game, because it's a great celebration of hockey, whether it's 60 degrees or 0 degrees. It's always a blast.
Well, Johnny, enough of that nonsense Rangers
Yeah,
talk.
yeah.
I got a very important question
here.
to ask you, my friend. Let's say we'll take you back. You're 10 years old now, 2026. You're a young hockey player on Long Island. Is there any chance that you are not going to be an Islander fan right now because of Matthew Schaefer? Is that, to you, I mean, I know you love watching him play, but is the biggest effect going to be that we're going to see a lot more Islander fans than Ranger fans coming out of the island at long last because they have the most exciting player to watch in the tri-state area?
Yeah, I think it's such a fair argument to have. Like for me, growing up, I was picking between Mark Messier or Jason Blake. Pretty easy choice.
That's fair.
When you look at those two guys. But for Schaefer and even me as a 29-year-old man, like I have fallen in love with Matthew Schaefer, and I think hockey fans across the globe have. I don't think it's even just a Long Island thing. I think it expands out to Europe, right? Like Matthew Schaefer, if you are a fan of the NHL, you have to love what he's doing. And, if I were someone with no rooting interest that just got into hockey, I'd probably become an Islander fan because of him. And I don't want to discredit like the other guys in the team too. Like Matt Barzal's been so fun to watch this year. I think a lot of people know how much I love Matt Barzal, but Schaefer's like vibrant energy has just totally changed the environment of the New York Islanders. And you can also point to Matthew Darsh and how things have loosened up a little bit around the organization. But yeah, to your point, Arthur, like if I 10-year-old Johnny Lazarus was watching hockey for the first time and I saw what Matthew Schaefer was doing, I think it'd be hard to pick another team.
Well said, Johnny. And listen, man, I got to give you credit. I mean, even though you are a Ranger fan, you do still have some love for the Islanders. And, I know you're a fan of Barzal's. Obviously, you talk about Schaefer here too. And I know you work with Matt Martin for his camp over the summer. You certainly got some ties there, man. So it's not that, that typical, bitter rivalry between, fan bases and stuff. But, with that in mind, I
didn't say I like Islander fans. I never said I like Islander fans.
Oh, that's right. I guess that's why you and I don't get along. But more seriously though, you look at that, you back up a little bit and look at the big picture here. I mean, is this rivalry hurting? Like, is it even like, you hate the words to come out of my mouth here, but like, is it even still a rivalry? I feel like it's just like, because I've been around now for a while, right? And I remember, the 90s and stuff like that, and when there was a little more heat to this whole thing. And I just feel like that rivalry that was between these two teams has just kind of lost its luster. I know part of that is they never find a way to be competitive at the same time, which would help. But do you see that this rivalry just isn't what it had been built up to be, and it's more just two teams in the same division now?
Yes and no. Like I see what you're saying, but I think there were a couple of years where maybe like physicality had gone a little bit out of the NHL, and it was more like smaller, young skill guys. And Paul Maurice said it the other day too, like you're starting to see physicality come back into the NHL again, where now like everyone wants to be like the Florida Panthers and have, a bunch of bullies that are going to get in your head and then outskill you too, but also just like totally beat you up. And, I think the Ranger Islander rivalry I grew up on, it was the preseason game between Al Montoya and Rick DiPietro. It was Chris Simon and Ryan Holweg. Things like that. And those aren't things that like you necessarily want to see in the NHL. You don't want to see a guy get slashed in the throat, but those were the things that were going on in that era of hockey. And in this era of hockey, I think rivalries are really built off playoff series. Like the Rangers and Carolina have built something up because they've seen each other in playoffs. Like even Rangers and Devils, while the rivalry is there, it's mostly there because of that 2023 first round series. Like that's what gave it its spark back. And the Rangers and Islanders have never met in the playoffs in my lifetime. So, that's probably one thing that's really missing that could get this rivalry up to where it used to be is, a heated 7-game series. And you look at the scheduling and they haven't played each other as much in years too, right? I think last year they might have played each other just like 3 times. And I think the first game happened in the second half of the year. Yeah. So the way the league has changed, it's kind of forced the rivalry to change, I feel like. But until these two teams maybe meet in a playoff series, you might not see what it used to be. But I will say there is a home and home coming up.
Right. End of the month.
Is that that's in January?
Yeah, 28th, 29th, I believe.
Yeah, so those are going to be 2 big games. Obviously, both teams need all the points they can get right now. Like the Islanders have been humming pretty much all year, and the Rangers are desperate for points. So like those 2 games, maybe that'll get things going a little bit. But until they meet in a playoff series, I don't know if it's going to be maybe what it used to be.
That's fair. Now I want to talk about my favorite thing, other than doing a podcast with you, that you do for Bleacher Report, just the skate that you get to do at big events or at the Las Vegas media tour in the beginning of the season. You got to do one with Matthew Barzal this September, and I know you've been raving about it to me. What's that like? And when you're on the ice with Barzy there, like, what do you learn about him, and how much fun is that to just kind of get some of your hockey skills out there and skate with guys that that we all watch on TV?
Yeah, so I will talk in detail about Barzal first, and that experience, because the beauty of the player media tour is you usually get like 3 players on the ice at a time. Like one, so the player media tour, for those who don't know, like one guy from every team is represented. They come to Vegas. They do like 3 days worth of commercials and content and all that stuff that, Bleacher Reports and Sportsnet and ESPN can post throughout the year. And like, those pregame, like little commercials you see, like that's where those are filmed. But what's so cool about that job for me is when you have 3 guys on the ice at the same time, one guy is kind of going through all the, let's say car wash at once on the ice. So the other 2 are sitting on the bench and just hanging out. And that's when I have a chance to like actually just talk to them like as human beings. So when Matt Barzal was out there this year, it's funny, like my girlfriend, who I've been dating now for 7 months, her best college friend, her boyfriend is good friends with Matt. So we had like a mutual friend or, a degree of separation. And he had known that coming into Vegas. I'd met him once briefly before a couple of years ago, but nothing like memorable. And he skated up to me. He was like, "Yo, what's up, Johnny?" Like right away, like knew who I was and made me comfortable. And, we kind of shot the shit for like 10, 15 minutes. I asked him about like his favorite spots in the city. I kind of got to know him a little bit before the skate and things that would maybe make him laugh. And I had reached out to Mark Gackhome and, asked Gackhome for some dirt on him. Like, I think I got a cut from the video, but Gackhome asked me to talk about the winter boots he wore to the US Open in August, to chirp his style a little bit. But yeah, he's a super cool guy, very genuine when you get to talk to him one-on-one. And I'll go into the other players in the league too. For me, obviously having the chance to skate a lap around a rink with an NHL player, like the first time I did it, I was like, holy shit, like that is the coolest thing ever. And it hasn't worn on me at all. Like every time I do it, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I just skated at Lone Depot Park with like, someone who fans are obsessed with, and Matt Rempe and Carter Verhaeghe, who, I've gotten to talk to a couple times, but like the Crosbys, the McKinnons, every guy is so different. And I know the question seems silly, but there is some research that actually goes into it because you do want to find out stuff that'll make them laugh and, loosen them up a little bit. But the success that I've found in those videos is, and Arthur, you could definitely speak to this firsthand, when you're talking to a player on the ice while they're skating, it's almost like their natural habitat. So like they are disarmed a little bit than when you have a microphone in their face in the locker room and they got the suit clothes on, or like they're in their Under Armour or Gitch or whatever you want to call it. So like just skating around and shooting the shit with guys, they're automatically just like more comfortable. And I think that's why the open ice skates or the open skates have had like such a good reach, because you can sense that the players are comfortable. And to me, that's like the biggest thing is, kind of disarming them and allowing fans to just see the casual, cool, and then you get the background of the rink in it, which is awesome.
For sure, Johnny. And obviously, big game between the Isles and Leafs last night. Arthur and I didn't get a chance to talk about it yet, but on the big stage, Hockey Night in Canada, and Matthew Schaefer shows up and he puts on a show, man. Two incredible goals. What more can you say about this kid and what he's doing for the island?
Yeah, I mean, I got some shit for saying he was different like 3 games into his career. I was like, I was wrong. I said he should have played in college, said he wasn't ready. And I think 99% of people probably had the opinion of like, maybe the Islanders should shelter him a little bit. And that has just not been the case at all. But Brandon Burke said it perfectly, right? This kid is incredible. Like, what a call. The overtime call was great too. And I don't know, like he is just the fact that he made that one-on-one move. I forgot who the defenseman was for Toronto, but to, go from forehand to backhand, like use your inside leg to protect the puck, lower the shoulder and drive the net. That's something that coaches like beg players to do. And if you're getting an 18-year-old defenseman doing that, it's just, you don't see every guy in the NHL able to do that, right? Like it's even some of the more elite forwards, like you don't get that from everybody. So to see him doing that at this level, this early, and knowing that he's like 1 goal away from Bobby Orr's, goals in his 18-year-old defenseman season, like it's just special. And I know people, and I think it was Rupper actually, Arthur, on our show, like, or maybe it was you telling people to pump the brakes on this kid. Don't. Why would you? Yeah. Why would you pump the brakes? It's so rare to have this many positive feelings towards an NHL player universally. And it's, I don't even think, maybe this is a stretch to say, but with how much he is loved, not only just from what he does on the ice, but from like knowing his background away from the rink, the way he handles all of his interviews, and like the video of him looking for Shannon last night after the game was like the cutest thing I've ever seen. Honestly, like, it was adorable. It's just like hard to think that we'll get to a point where we can really give him harsh criticism. Like I think he's won over everyone already, that it almost seems impossible for Matthew Schaefer to ever have doubters or haters, no matter like what he goes through in his career. And again, I know that's a stretch, but I really genuinely believe that.
So my last question, Johnny, and we're going to be talking again tomorrow when we record our podcast. Yeah. When the Islanders have their Stanley Cup parade around the island, will you attend and will you wear your Islander jersey?
Yes.
Not only will I attend and wear a jersey, I tweeted that I'll get a full sleeve. So Islander fans can design my left arm. I got no tattoos in my body, and I'm that confident that they won't win the cup that I will. Maybe I don't have to pay for it. Maybe Islander fans can chip in and pay for it.
We'll get a good GoFundMe going off of this show.
Absolutely. Right? Okay. But is there like a time frame on this? Is there a limit or just ever?
It's this year. It's this year.
Oh, it's this year. Well, I mean,
you think I'm going to risk my arm for the rest of my life?
Well, that's why I had to ask, man, because it seemed pretty generous of you. Yeah, you know.
No. Last year I said I'll get a lower back tattoo if they made the playoffs. This year I said
that's right.
You're going to get
if they win the cup.
The Robin Leonard, the one on Robin Leonard's neck of the outline of Long Island. You're going to get that all the way up here with like little spot, like the town names and everything. I'm going to work. My daughters are going to work on the design. Yeah, no. My daughters are going to be working on the design. I'll make a friendly bet
with the two of you, though, if that's of interest.
What was that? What was that, dude?
I'll make a friendly bet with you two if that's of interest.
Let's do it.
Why not?
What is your favorite restaurant or cuisine on Long Island?
Ooh. Well, I was just raving to Arthur about the queso at Dirty Taco
across the street here.
Best queso I've ever had
in RBC.
So I'll leave it at that so I don't waste any more time thinking about my favorite restaurant. Jimmy Hayes in Island Park's really good. Great steak spot.
Okay, so we'll go there. If the Islanders win a cup, I'll pay for it, my treat. If the Rangers win a cup first, you guys take me to Chris and Tony's in Syosset for a nice Italian meal, and you pay for it. Deal?
Deal.
That sounds like a great deal to me.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Done. All right, last one before I let you go, Johnny. I've been banging this competition, the Eastern Conference drum, every week. I'm astonished by the fact that all these teams are still in it. We're through halfway through the season here, and really almost anybody in the East can get into the playoffs. So can you give me some maybe contenders and pretenders here? Because you got teams like, even throw the Islanders in there, right? Not expected to be this good right now. Yeah. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh is back in the mix. Buffalo just rattled off 10 wins in a row. Who are the teams that are actually going to stick it out and get in, and who are the teams that are eventually going to find their way towards the bottom?
Yeah, I mean, this is like, it's hard, right? Everyone says this team's a contender in the East. When you really define contender, it's like you're confident they can win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not confident in any team in the East that they can win the Stanley Cup.
That's
especially
fair.
When you look at those three teams in the West. Right. Like I look at the top of the East right now, the Tampa Bay Lightning are up there. And while the Tampa Bay Lightning obviously have the track record and have the horses that can do it, I'm not taking them in a 7-game series over Colorado or Dallas right now, or maybe even Minnesota. So I like the word contender. I truly don't think there is one in the East right now, like that I'm confident in. But I think the Florida Panthers will get their way in there. They're 1 point back as we're talking right now of Washington. Pittsburgh, I do think will drop. Philly, I think will drop. The Islanders will stick. I do think the Islanders are going to finish second in the division. Like I really do feel that. And I think I've said they were I said they were a playoff team after 15 games because they've been consistent. Like that 7-2 game the other day was probably the only game this year where they I don't want to say got embarrassed, but you just left the building feeling poorly about the effort they showed.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't even think it was a bad game because the first period they were completely dominant. Then the next 40, shit kind of hit the fan. But the Islanders haven't had many stinkers this year.
Yeah.
And that's like pretty rare. So, I don't know. The East, to me, everyone says it's wide open. I do believe it's wide open, but I don't see an Eastern Conference team winning the Cup this year with how strong the West has been. Actually, maybe besides Florida. Florida, once they're healthy, like who knows? But yeah, I don't know. The East just hasn't convinced me yet that they're a true contender.
Well, Johnny, I'm with you, man, and this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us, bud, and hope to have you on again soon.
Love what you guys do. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, brother. Take care. All right, folks, that was the great Johnny Lazarus, once again, of Daily Faceoff, Morning Cup of Hockey, and the Tri-State Hockey Podcast. Good stuff, man.
He's the best.
He's the best. So that will do it for On the Line, presented by Razor, Kniff, and Launstein, ready to fight when your good name is on the line. So we're going to take one more break, and when we come back, we're going to What's on Tap.
Representation, it's not always easy to know where to turn. But whether you've been accused of a crime or need to go to court, Razor, Kniff, and Launstein, attorneys at law, have you covered with over 100 years of combined experience. With offices in Manhattan, Mineola, and Suffolk, Razor, Kniff, and Launstein is an award-winning law firm specializing in criminal defense with additional expertise in business debt settlement, trust and estates, personal injury, and more. At Razor, Kniff, and Launstein, you'll have direct access to your attorney 24/7. Because more attentive service translates to better outcomes. You deserve legal representatives with national recognition and a strong track record of delivering results. And Razor, Kniff, and Launstein are ready to fight for you. Call 212-LAW-1500 or go to razorandkniff.com to schedule a free, no-risk consultation today. That's RAISERANDKENNIFF.com. Razor, Kniff, and Launstein. We win cases because we make your problems our problems.
Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on here at Hockey Night in New York, but I did lie to you before the break. We're not going to What's on Tap yet because we didn't talk about the phenomenal game that was Islanders-Leafs last night.
We just keep getting thwarted in our desire to talk about this.
We were just having so much fun talking about Barzal and Marchment that we just had to push it to the side.
All right. Well, we're bringing it back in.
We're here now. Big game at, I almost said the Coliseum. Big game at UBS Arena.
Felt like it.
It kind of did, right? Awesome 4-3 win in overtime for the New York Islanders. Classic seesaw battle here. Leads going back and forth. And, you have some fanfare there for the Leafs where Austin Matthews, he ties and breaks Matt Sundin's record. And now we're spilling off of the bench for everything now.
That's fine.
You're okay with it?
Franchise record. Let him have it.
Come on. That's a little much.
Also, much like the game where Tavares got his 1,000th point late in that game for the Leafs to tie it, I think it kind of energizes the home side to see everybody celebrating on your ice. And look at what happened after that.
That's a fair point, Arthur. That's a fair point. And I actually want to continue that point a little bit later on, talk about the whole Leafs-Islanders Tavares thing. But let's talk about the game, the Matt Schaefer show. Yeah. Obviously, he was tremendous. We talked about it a little bit with Johnny, but just the way we talked about it off camera earlier, how the Islanders needed a guy to kind of step up. With Horvat being out, right? Who's going to be the guy? Maybe you look to Barzal, but Schaefer was like, "Hey, I got this."
Yeah.
And basically coast to coast. Everybody saw the play, but just an incredible play. He finishes it, big tying goal. Of course, the wind is taken out of their sails immediately after Matthews scores a second goal, but the Islanders stick with it. And beautiful no look pass from Barzal to Heineman. Heineman buries it into the net. Guy's got a great shot. And, of course, this one ends up going to overtime. And the connection between Barzal and Schaefer there was tremendous as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Reminiscent, I don't want to keep mentioning him, but reminiscent of that Josh Bailey, John Tavares connection at Barclays many years ago in overtime. Where Tavares, two guys come to him, he just throws this ridiculous pass, and Bailey's all alone to tuck it in. Again, we were talking about the Tavares 1,000th point game. Mm-hmm. This had that feel of like, I love this rivalry. I really love it. Like, when I did my Islanders book, I wasn't covering the Islanders back in 2002. I did cover that series for Newsday, but it was the most violent, nasty series, I think. And I think guys that played in it and guys that just watched it that were in the league were like, I remember that one.
Yes.
And that was kind of, that was kind of the birth in the modern era. I know 78, if you want to go way back, when the Leafs kind of thwarted the beginning of the Islanders dynasty. But 2002 is really where it was born. It was so mean. And a lot of those guys, whether it's Steve Webb, Eric Cairns, Garth Snow, they're all still kind of in the orbit of the Islanders. They were for a long time. So it kind of kept it alive. And obviously Tavares making his decision to go there. You think back to the Barzal hat trick game in Toronto soon after that departure. The Islanders know it. The fans know it. The team knows it, that this is a team that they want to beat. And it means something more to everybody around here to beat them. So to see them do that, first Hockey Night in Canada broadcast for Matthew Schaefer, like Johnny was saying, he's looking around for Shannon. He goes and does the walk-off interview with his Hockey Night in Canada towel, goes to give it back, and Kyle Bukas says, no, you get to keep that. And it's the look on his face, like it means something. And I think Matthew Schaefer talks about how much he gets what the Islanders are about. He knows that it means something.
Yeah.
I'm sure nobody has to talk to him, that like a lot of guys are from the Toronto area. Broadcast is on there. I'm sure extended families watching. There's lots of Leafs fans that come down here for the games. So this felt like a special one, even without the specialness of what Schaefer did, and really within the context of what the Islanders have been the last 2 or 3 weeks. Just a team that's not generating enough, missing Horvat a couple different times. We've talked about it. Their forwards there's no one that's going to grab a game by the throat and say, all right, follow me. And maybe they don't need it because they've got this kid. You saw the play that developed. It was just Jonathan Drouin said, like, hey, here, just take this.
Right.
We're all going to go for a change. We'll see you later. And he blows, Morgan Riley, I understand he's later in his career, but you don't see that happen very often.
Right.
That's McCarr, McKinnon, McDavid type stuff. And to think that this guy's an Islander and he's just starting out, like Johnny says, it can't not put a smile on your face, no matter who you root for, to watch him do that. And then the icing on the cake to finish it off in overtime.
Yeah, no, it was a storybook finish there a little bit there, right? We'll remember this game for a little while. But, thinking about, you talk about rivalries here, you're talking about the Islander Ranger rivalry. I mean, for me, and I've probably said this on the show at some point, but for me, I'm more in tune to the Maple Leafs rivalry than I am the Rangers rivalry at this point. Like, I get more up for the Maple Leaf games, and I hate the Maple Leafs more than I do the Rangers at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I love to see their failures all the time. So last night was just chef's kiss, especially with, okay, if Matthews gets the franchise record, they spill out into the ice, and then the Islanders go and spoil it in overtime. I mean, just beautiful, right? And like how they did it for Tavares' 1,000th point. And just to get back to this whole Islander Tavares Maple Leafs dynamic here, like I don't, subscribe to the mystical forces of the world, but I have to say, like, ever since Tavares went and signed that contract out in Toronto, this like just extended like karmic, I suppose, reverberation back towards Tavares and the Leafs has just, it's been unbelievable. Like, just the failures, the playoff failures, having to give up his captaincy in public, like just everything about it. And even last night when they captured that video clip of like basically the camera was over Tavares' shoulder and it just shows him watching Schaefer, celebrating the overtime win. Like just all of it has been like almost too good. Ever since he left.
Yeah. It might be a little too much now. I feel like
not for me.
He did a lot for the Islanders in his 9 years here. You can certainly fault the way that the process went when he kind of took it to the wire, so that didn't want to be traded. They honored his wishes. They were catering to him all through that last season. He could have done things differently. The Islanders certainly could have done things a lot differently from ownership on down. There was a lot of blame to go around in that one. And then it was too late to try to save it when Lou came in, and he made his decision. And it's, it stunk at the time, but it really was a galvanizing force for the Islanders.
Yeah.
And I think the Leafs, they have this place in the hockey world where they feel like they're kings of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's really unearned.
They've 100%.
They've got the longest drought, I think, of anybody it's one of the longest championship droughts in
You would think
sports.
they win the cup every other year.
Yes. And it's, and I think there's a lot of that Islander Ranger dynamic too, where the Rangers have gone 32 years without winning, and they still feel like, well, we own the Islanders. That's, we run their stuff. So it's kind of like, yeah.
Sure.
Based on what?
Right.
And I think for the Leafs, just being the middle of the hockey ecosystem gives them this, lots of the media is there. That I've talked about it a little bit on Twitter today about the fake outrage a couple years ago that people had about booing Tavares, and it's just kind of like, it's fun. It's a fun thing. It keeps the hate going. You got to put it somewhere if you're a fan.
Well,
and especially when your team is not having the success that you want them to have. So I'm glad that that's died down. Not that the booing has died down, but at least the fake outrage about it has died down. So there's so many different aspects to this, and it's really boomeranged around and around on Tavares
really
a lot,
has.
and it feels like they've had so many trials and tribulations this year. They kicked Brendan Shanahan out and kind of like think like, okay, we can just let Mitch Marner go and we'll be fine and replace him with a couple of 40-point guys, and obviously it hasn't worked. I still think they're going to be there in the playoffs. I think they're they're too good, and the East is too mediocre for them to miss. But if they miss, oh gosh! And John is
what
just
a shame
and Tavares just signed this incredibly team-friendly deal.
Right. Well, he's, as Carver said in the show last week, he's a loyal guy. He's a loyal guy.
Mike, that's good. Yeah, I mean, and he's signing up for a few more years. Like in a couple of years, Austin Matthews is a free agent. What if he decides I've had enough of this? Imagine
that guy looks like he's had enough.
Out of that group, I mean, I know Nylander will be there, but out of that core group where they were adding Tavares, they were like, "This is it. We're the powerhouse. We formed
so beautiful.
We formed the Avengers, and he's going to be the last at 37 or whatever.
Just the sweetest.
Still
thing.
Producing.
Right.
He's going to be the last guy there, and Marner's beating the path to Vegas, and Matthews is going to go wherever, LA maybe, and it'll just be John there. Like, I think at that point we'll say, okay, enough's enough.
Right.
Maybe we can welcome him back into the fold at some point then. But man, you're right. It's been unbelievable one-way traffic on him.
It really has. And speaking of those boos, I was in the building last night and they were loud. Those boos were like, I was like surprised. I was like, wow, man, they're really giving it to him tonight. Like they have not forgotten. That's for sure.
I feel like it's never going to subside because you're either in one of two spaces. You're either like last year where the Islanders are not good and he comes in and the Leafs are good and you're like, F that guy, we're going to boo him.
Right.
Or now where it's like the Islanders are feeling good and the Leafs are playing like shit. And it's like, now we're going to humiliate you.
Yes.
So it's never going to end.
Yeah.
And I don't know why anybody would expect it to end. And maybe, like I said, there'll be some détente or peace deal or something when he retires and we'll see him
maybe
be welcome back and maybe have some sort of honor when he's done, but that's going to be a little while because he's still playing at a high level, and I think there's going to have to be a little bit of breathing room.
Definitely
once he's done. Yeah.
Definitely. But and yes, and also just credit to the fans in the building last night because not only the boos, but just in general, it was loud last night. Like it was probably one of the louder nights at UBS.
Good.
Since they started there, and it popped when those goals went off. So it was fun to be there. So credit to you guys in the stand. So yeah, big 4-3 win. Everybody's feeling good, and now we're gonna see what happens this week.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to what's on tap. Tuesday, the 6th, the New Jersey Devils come to town, 7:30 p.m. start. They played recently. Islanders took that one. I know the Devils they've won their last two. They beat Utah, so I don't know if that's going to mean anything. Yeah. And but they're not exactly putting it together, getting guys healthy. Obviously you got Hughes back, but I actually found it interesting that Lazarus was saying, "Hey, I think the Islanders are going to finish second in the division," and immediately popped into my mind. I was like, "Hey, what about the Devils?"
I mean, they got when they were 8-1 and at an 8-game winning streak, I thought, okay, these guys are going to go straight to the top of the East. They're going to represent the East in the finals. Mm-hmm. I had full confidence in them, and it's been interesting to see the way that it's kind of broken down. Obviously, the injuries, like for a lot of teams. And if you were watching the U.S. Olympic announcement on the Today Show, you saw Jack Hughes looked like one of those defensive linemen that has his hand wrapped like a club. I don't know what that giant wrap was on his hand, but it's certainly an indication that he is not at 100%.
Oh boy.
So I feel like they're still not exactly where they need to be, but I still have a lot of faith in the Devils to rebound, and I feel like they're one of the more talented teams in the East. So,
and the scary thing is, there's still a half season of hockey to go,
and nobody is. We've talked about it. Nobody is out of it.
Nobody's safe.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll happen on Tuesday against the Devils. We'll see where that goes. I'll ask Jake what he thinks is going to happen later on. Thursday, the 8th, the Islanders start off a long road trip. They go into Nashville, 8 o'clock, and wouldn't you know it, just in time for Nashville to have finally woken up.
That's right.
They're back in the mix here. Stamkos is finally putting up some points. They have some names in that team. A lot of, they had that big summer when Barry Trotz took over, brought in a lot of guys. Didn't exactly work out in the beginning. Looked like it was going to be even worse this year. And now here they are back and probably going to give the Islanders a game on Thursday.
Yeah. I mean, I think, they've turned it around. And much like Buffalo, they've turned it around in a really good way. I think they're,
7-3-0 in their last 10.
And they're still on the outside of the playoff picture. And the playoff picture at the bottom end of the West is not that high, high up. There's those 3 teams in the Central, but there's really there's a lot of mess like there is in the East over there. So,
right.
But yeah, Nashville's playing better and kicking off that long a road trip, 7 games, I think over 15 days. You got to get that first one. You want to start off strong. They're going to be going out to different time zones way out west after that. It's going to get a lot harder because I think they go to Minnesota right after that.
Yeah,
so you want to not be looking past that one.
Yes. Segue into that. If you're at all nervous about the Nashville game, just wait till they get to Saturday, because they will be playing the Quinn Hughes-led Minnesota Wild, and this team has been a wagon since he joined the team, and they pretty much were beforehand. But I mean, this is one of the better teams in the league, not only in the West. Probably a team who might be able to give teams like Colorado and Dallas a run for their money if and when they get to the playoffs together, right? And Minnesota was actually one of the few games that the Islanders had earlier in the year where a game got away from them, where they lost by a few goals, and it looked like 2 different teams on the ice. So I'm a little concerned about this one for the Isles.
Yeah, our old friend Jack Capuano is the associate coach there, runs the D. He must be smiling year to year. We've got Quinn Hughes to go with Brock Faber and Jonas Brodin, and a pretty good decor there. But really, bold move by Billy Guerin to go out and get him. Gave up a lot, but you got a year plus now to kind of convince him to stay.
Right.
I don't know if he will, but it's probably worth it to just try to see if you can have Quinn Hughes be that guy to get over it, get through that brick wall of Colorado and Dallas in that division. Everybody's kind of lamenting those are going to be the 3 top teams most likely at the end of the year, and one of them is going to go out in the first round in all likelihood. So Minnesota probably doesn't want it to be them. I think if they can catch Dallas, get a little home ice, maybe that'll work for them. But for now, they're definitely enjoying the fruits of that trade, and you definitely don't want to get into a track meet with the skill guys they got on that team.
No. And do you think that Quinn Hughes has a better chance of staying with Minnesota than Ryan Smith or Thomas Vanek did with the New York Islanders?
Well, I don't know if they have an equivalent to driving into Brooklyn, which was kryptonite for Thomas.
That's
Vanek.
right. He hated it.
He did. He was not a big city guy. So I don't know. Hearing what I'd heard leading up to it, obviously the Devils made the most sense because of his brothers being there. They couldn't pull the trade off.
It seemed like a foregone conclusion almost.
But 2 summers from now, summer 2027, things will look very different for both of those teams. Minnesota, might have some contracts coming off the books. The Devils can try to shift some things around. Who knows if they'll have the same management team. So yeah, I think it depends on where everybody is in a year plus. But like I said, Minnesota's going to enjoy it now, and they won the deal, and they're certainly looking good with him in the lineup.
Yes, indeed. So, folks, that will do it for What's on Tap. You got Jersey on Tuesday, then they hit the road, Nashville Thursday, and Minnesota on Saturday. Not exactly easy, but the Islanders have been pretty plucky this year. So we'll see how they do. We will see how they do. And now it's time to talk about heroes. That's right, folks. It's time for Hero of the Week, presented by Knock Hockey, the American-made all-time classic. Arthur, would you like to go first?
Sure.
Have at it.
All right. I picked Matthew Barzal.
Bastard.
Started the week with a bang, literally the sound of his stick hitting Mason Marchment's shin pad.
Yes, well said.
And then ended it with a bang with the great setup for Matthew Schaefer in overtime. When Bo Horvat's out, really the offense runs through Matthew Barzal. I know Matthew Schaefer still has those moments like he had last night, but it is Barzal's show. And in the first time around with Horvat out, I think he had a 5-game point streak, which really they weren't scoring a whole lot, and all of it was running through Barzal. And I really feel like he took it to a different level with the response to the Mason Marchment play in Columbus. This is a guy who, I've covered him since he was a teenager. He's a great kid, super confident, you didn't think that he had that in his bag of tricks. Great to see, and I think he's going to get a lot more admiration from people around the team and the league for what he did. Maybe people sort of, Mike Rupp on a Tri-State podcast said he's like an and one mixtape guy, like he full of really incredible moves, but does he have a huge impact on the game? Not always, but he's certainly flashy all the time. I think this was a different level for him this week, and it was good to see.
Okay. I think that's a great pick. Beautiful passes in both of those goals that he was a part of last night against the Leafs. And one of the guys that are going to have to pick it up while Horvat's out. And just speaking of that real quick, do we know when Horvat might be coming back?
I mean, like I said, he's already back skating.
Yeah.
You think maybe a week plus, 2 weeks at most. Again, you have two injuries, especially leg injuries back to back. Nobody's going to rush him back, even if they start to falter a little bit. But I imagine he'll definitely be on this trip. He'll be skating. Maybe he'll surprise us. He came back pretty quickly after the Christmas break. So hopefully it's the same this time.
Indeed. So great choice there. And we can't go through this week's Hero of the Week without mentioning this guy. I gave you Barzal. I wanted Barzal.
But, you did? I thought I gave you the obvious choice, but
it's okay. It's fine. So Matthew Schaefer, folks, obviously, just what a monumental game he had last night. And, we already talked about it at length, but it's so exciting to have this guy. It's still surreal, A, that he's even on the team, and B, that he's still just turned 18. He's still going to grow. He's still going to put man muscle on, all that stuff. And you just wonder what this guy really can be when all that stuff really comes together, right? Like, the guy is only 18, which is just blows my mind. So obviously the reason why they won the game essentially last night. So got to give credit where it's due. The kid is just money. And I think we just need somebody other than your hero, Barzal, to protect this man for the rest of his career, because it looks like this stuff isn't going to stop.
No, and he's going to learn how to protect himself, too.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's why he's got to put on that man muscle.
That's right.
All right, so, folks, that will do it for Hero of the Week, presented by Knock Hockey. Get your board at knockhockey.com. And now we're going to take it, it's been a little while, to the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake Redonis.
That's right, folks. It's time for the Snake Den featuring Jake the Snake Redonis. Jake, welcome back. Good to have you back. Hope you had lovely holidays. And how's the new year going for you so far?
It's going good. Yeah, I had a good holiday season.
Excellent.
Good New Year's Eve, good New Year's Day, and I'm looking forward to what this year brings.
Was Santa good to you?
Santa was good to me.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Santa.
Thank you, Santa. All right, very good. So where are we going tonight? What are we doing?
We're going to keep it in the system.
Okay.
We have international hockey that's been going on. There's actually a game going on right now. We got to watch a little bit of an exciting one earlier, too.
Yeah.
So
shootout.
World Junior Championships. As we know, we have a couple Islanders prospects playing in them. Couple already eliminated. But earlier tonight, Team Sweden beat Team Finland. Representing Team Sweden is Victor Eklund. That game, the semis, went to, I believe, the 7th round of a shootout, which we watched here in studio.
Yes.
Which was pretty fun. Eklund didn't score, but his team is moving on, which means that we'll have we'll have two prospects facing off against each other in the final.
Okay.
Which will be either Canada or Czechia playing Sweden. That game's on right now. Last time I checked, it was 0-0 still.
Okay.
You got Keishon Aitchison playing for Canada and Tomas Politin playing for the Czechs. Some tournament stats here. So for Sweden, Victor Eklund has 6 points in 6 games, 1 goal, 5 assists. We know, as we've heard about him, as we become more acclimated to him as a prospect, more of a playmaker type guy. Nice to see him getting on the score sheet in international play here, and I'm excited to watch him play in the championship. If they're playing Canada, I'm probably going to be rooting for Sweden. So
okay, sure, yeah, all right.
Bold,
next up, we'll go to Czechia with Tomas Politin. 4 points in 5 games, 3 goals. This guy is just a big framed dude who just goes right to the net. Kind of reminds me of an Anders Lee type player.
Okay,
he's not scared to get in there and mix it up and try to just find goals in front of the net and just make them happen like that. So he's having a good tournament. Maybe he scores tonight, maybe not. We'll see. But he's someone that people are excited about over in Czechia, and he's playing, I believe, in the Western League right now too. Next up for Canada, Keishon Aitchison, 3 points in 5 games, 1 goal. still playing that physical game. It's a little different with international hockey. Can't blow up guys kind of the way that he does. Or fight.
Sure.
You get kicked out of the tournament.
Right.
But
right. Don't want to do that.
He's this big presence too. If you're playing against him, you got to look out for him on the ice, which is something that the Islanders, we talk about. It'll be nice for them to have when he's up in the system, maybe defend a guy like Matthew Schaefer down the line and also be able to possibly bring that offensive spark. Playing right now, we'll see if he's going to be in the finals. And then we have USA, who went down early, right in the quarterfinals.
Yes,
I watched the game. Finland honestly played as a very cohesive unit that game, and US they scored late, tied it up, but it didn't seem like they were going to win that game at all. You had Yzerman and Kamil Bednarik playing in that game, both BU guys. Yzerman 2 goals in the tournament and an assist in 5 games. He had a really nice one-timer goal that was passed over from Cole Hudson, also one of his teammates. And then Kamil Bednarik, 2 assists in 4 games. He had a nice assist in one of those games, but those guys are done. They'll play for bronze tomorrow, so hopefully they could at least get up on the podium for something. But I think it's the most important thing is that all these guys are out there playing international hockey against the best guys under 20 in the world, and it'll be cool to see 2 Isles prospects face off in the final too, so something to keep note of.
Yeah, no doubt. Great experience for these kids. Arthur, does you have the names that usually come up when you talk about the prospects. Eklund, Aitchison, of course, top of the list here. And then you have the Danny Nelsons of the world, the Yzermans of the world. Bednarik, is this a guy who has a shot at maybe making some noise eventually in the franchise?
Yeah, I think the way that he kind of structures his game and the way that Jay Pandolfo uses him at BU, he's a shutdown guy. He's more of a defensive style forward. He obviously has some offensive skill, and I think that's part of the reason why he made the U.S. World Junior team, that he could play in that bottom 6 role. I think they sat him out one game, and he maybe was you can dress 13 forward, so maybe he was more in like a rotation in a couple others. But he's a soft-spoken kid, and I think just kind of a quiet confidence, and I feel like you put those fundamentals in your game at that early an age. It's going to help you, down the line. He comes into his pro years in a couple, I would think he'd need at least one more year in college. But after that, come up, play in Bridgeport, hone your game a little bit as a checking center. And then you've got a shot. You see some of these skill guys come up and they can only fill one role. If they're not in the top 6, they're not really helping in the NHL. I think a guy like Bednarik, much like a guy like Danny Nelson, much like a guy like Cal Ritchie, you come up and show that two-way ability, especially as a center, you can squeak your way into the lineup a lot easier. Okay.
All right. That's good to hear. So, Jake, you heard what's on tap. How are the Islanders going to do this week?
I'm going to go 2-1. I think they start with a win against Jersey in regulation, and then I think they win in OT down in Nashville. Like you guys talked about, Nashville's kind of found their footing a little bit, which seems like they've been trying to do for the past couple of years, especially with Stamkos on a heater. At least I have him in fantasy, but we'll call that an OT win there.
Okay.
And then Saturday, I just think that's a wash for the Isles. I could just see the Wild kind of running away with that one. It also depends who's in net this week. I think with Sorokin, it might be a little bit closer of a game if he comes back. If not, Quinn Hughes he looks like Quinn Hughes of years past now that he's over there and he's got Boldy and Kaprizov. And just having those 3 on a power play is ridiculous. So I'll go 2-1 on the week.
Okay, fair enough. And Arthur, do you think we see Sorokin on Tuesday?
We better.
Okay, that's a good answer. Okay, fair enough. And do you have a trivia question for us?
I do. So I asked, who is the franchise leader in shorthanded goals? Is it Lorne Henning, Anders Kuller, Butch Goring, or Franz Nielsen?
I shouldn't say I know the answer to this because I've forgotten plenty of stuff from my research days, but I'm going to go with Anders Kuller.
I'm going to go with Franz Nielsen just because I have no idea how many goals those other guys have scored shorthanded. So,
that's a buzzer for Arthur over there with Anders Kuller.
Hey, all right. Are we keeping tabs on these trivia questions, by the way?
I'm sure we can. I'll say there was a lot of different guesses in the chat.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Did Goring play a lot of PK in his day?
Oh, yeah.
He did.
Yeah, he did. But Anders Kuller was kind of, he's one of those guys, one of those dynasty guys that you don't really think about. He was a big scoring player. I remember reading up and talking to some people about Bill Torrey when he was, was one of the first ones to really scout Europe, and Kuller came over and Stefan Persson, guys who were really integral to what they did during those dynasty years. Stefan Persson, had tons of power play points playing with Dennis Potvin. They didn't do the 1D 4-forward thing way back in the day.
Sure.
So Pearson had a couple of 60-point seasons, and Anders Kaller was just a jack of all trades, guy who I think on any other team probably would have been a 40, 45 goal guy, but he played a certain role for those guys.
Okay.
Obviously hugely skilled at those dynasty teams.
Yes.
So his supporting role was killing a lot of penalties, and you get a lot of opportunities back in the day. So, yep.
All right. Well, Jake, good stuff. Thanks for the trip through the snake den. But we got to move on now.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So, folks, I'm going to tell you all about Isles Fix, Islanders Country. Get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at ilesfix.substack.com. And now it's time to join our pal Edzo with the beautiful hat that he's wearing tonight. Edzo, how we doing, brother? How was your holidays?
Hockey New Year, yeah, it's been good.
Hockey New Year.
How about that
Saving
one?
that
I've been
one.
saving that one. I didn't want to say anything at dinner. but
And how's our pal Jay doing next to you?
he's good.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's
smiling
smiley.
a little
He's
bit.
smiley Jay.
Sound a little bit of fun tonight?
Yeah.
That's great.
Jake, real quick though, DTMR wants to know what's up with the Sabres hat. Real quick.
Well, I went to college upstate, so I was naturally in Syracuse and had to go and get a upstate sports team hat, and I thought that the Sabres would be the right one to go with.
It's a nice hat.
Nice.
Thing is
Other than
tight.
everybody
Don't
else,
make
yeah.
fun of
You
him
don't
for
have to
that.
defend that.
Yeah.
Everybody else
okay.
who goes to school upstate is just on the Bills bandwagon. I'm not a Sabres fan, but I like the hat.
It's a nice hat.
Yeah.
It's
Get
a
this
very nice
DTMR.
hat.
I just have a Sabres hat. And I didn't go to school or
I guess I
anything.
didn't
I
have
just
to.
have one.
Deal with it.
That's right. All right, Ed, let's get to some questions. What do you got?
We're going to start with Charlie O'Hagan, who started real early before we even
yes.
started the stream. He said, do you believe that getting a guy like Jordan Kyrou would help not only this season, but in the future? I would give next year's 2 first-rounders. Don't want to touch our prospect pool.
He would help if he
would
came
help.
to the team.
You
The
would have
question
to touch
is,
the prospect pool to get Jordan Kyrou.
yeah.
But sure, he'd help. Yeah, I love it. But it's not going to take 2 firsts to get him. It's going to take a first, the Islanders first, because that'll be better than Colorado's first.
Probably.
And it's going to take one of those guys that Jake mentioned at the very least
Yeah,
to make this
probably.
happen. So I know Jordan Kyrou has kind of always been like, is he on the market? Is he not? He's certainly a prolific scorer and a really up-tempo guy who's played on some good Blues teams. Love to have him, but it's going to cost a lot.
I'm with Arthur. Next.
Chris from Long Island, he says, hey, Arthur, what forward can Darch add without breaking the future's bank? Chris from Hicksville, home of Billy Joel.
Ooh.
Okay. All
And
right.
Ed was doubting earlier whether
I
Hicksville is
did
Billy
fact check
Joel's-
it. I thought it was Levittown, but it is Hicksville.
That's
Okay.
that's so disappointing when you get
Yeah, I know.
when Google.
I know. Born in the Bronx, though.
Okay, good. Who would it be? You know, it's funny because I remember being asked this question a few weeks ago, and
True.
I said Mason Marchment was a guy I had my eye on.
Right. I forgot about that.
Forget that guy now.
Yeah.
Although I could see him being flipped again by Columbus because
Sure,
they're
yeah,
down
yeah.
at the bottom. So maybe it'd be kind of a stretch after what he did in the game last
Then
weekend.
he could protect Schaefer.
That's right.
He could be the guy.
What a wonderful wonderful way to wrap it up.
Full circle.
Very full circle.
So I still keep an eye on a guy like him. I mean, obviously Kiefer Sherwood is a guy in Vancouver, but I feel like people have been talking about him for weeks now. You know that, and I don't know how low cost he'd be. Marchment, whatever, he cost a second round pick to go from Seattle to Columbus. That's really what kind of the max you'd want to spend if you're Darsh. You know, I think you just have to look around. The other part, too, is that even in the last couple of weeks, we talked about it, Nashville's come back up. St. Louis is actually not that far off. You know, really, it's Vancouver, it's Chicago.
That's it.
It's
That's
nobody in the East.
Yeah.
And Vancouver, you know, who among their veterans do you really want? You know, Sherwood's really been the guy so far,
Yeah.
but you look at that team, you know, they came in and put one on the Islanders a couple of weeks ago. But there's really no one that's a pending UFA that you'd really say like, okay, that guy's going to make a difference for us, even in the short term. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't even think there's anybody on the Hawks that you'd say like, okay, we got to go out and get that guy. So, for me, it's still a little bit of wait and see right now. They got a few more weeks. I think you take it up closer to not the trade deadline, but the end of the run up to the Olympics. That because there's a roster freeze when the games aren't being played. So I think that last week of January, maybe you reassess again in whatever 10 games and see where they're at and see where some other teams are at. Maybe people have fallen off a little bit, and there'll be some more names that could shake loose.
And if not, I mean, we might find ourselves in a situation where I know Danny Briere did it, whether last year or 2 years ago, where they were in the mix, but he dealt some guys off anyway. He was kind of just like, hey, look, it's not our time. You know, I still need to build this team the right way, whatever it was, right? Anyone did it. Now, are we going to see that maybe again where you have some teams wave the white flag when they're 2 points out of a playoff spot because there's just so many teams that could still be there, you know, by the deadline? They might have to say to themselves, listen, we want to make the playoffs. We'd love to make a run, whatever it is, but we know this isn't our year. So sorry, fans. I know we got a shot here, but we're about to deal away this guy who could certainly help us, you know, get to the dance.
Yeah, and, you know, you look at, I just saw it today. Alexander Wenberg in San Jose just signed an extension for 3 years at $6 million per. And you kind of say, like, this is a guy who's at best a 40-point guy. I understand they're trying to build something for the long haul there, and he's a good guy. He's a good character guy. But it does sort of say to you, okay, well, JG Pageau, he hits the open market. He's going to get more than that. He's a more effective player than Alexander Wenberg. So you start to think, are the Islanders going to be in a situation where no matter what's going on with them, do they have to say to themselves, we can't afford this guy next in the summer? So do you start to try to shuffle those chairs around? I don't think they do.
Right.
But I think when you see a contract extension like that in the middle of the season, you say, oh, boy.
It is kind of like a sad thing because it hit the back of my mind and I'm a little scared of it because, like, this has been a very feel-good year for Islander fans so far, right? We get to the halfway point. They're sitting in a comfortable, not by points, but comfortable by when you look at the list. Oh, second in the Metro, right? And you have all these great vibes from Schaefer and even all the other new guys that came in. Pretty much everybody's been Riddick, you know, Heineman, and the list goes on, right? And what a shame it would be if you know, they just have a rough week or two and it's at the wrong time, you know, and then all of this good stuff not necessarily gets thrown in the trash, but, you know, maybe they don't get that playoff spot that people are starting to feel like is going to happen now, right? I mean, Johnny said he thinks they're in, right? And maybe that's going to be the case. Hopefully it is, but it would be such a shame for all of this, you know, like, just, again, these good vibes at Darch and on down the line have built up for this team and this fan base to maybe potentially fall short because it's such a realistic possibility. Like, it's there. Like, the wrong guy could get hurt or not even that. Like, you can just have a team like Pittsburgh or Philly get hot, and that could be the team that ends up bumping the Islanders off, you know, by a point or two. And then you lament the shootout loss that they had against Philly, you know, back in November, whenever it was, you know. So I'm just throwing that thought out there because it's still just wild to me how, like, they're having a good year, but it may not even end up being a great year.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's been so good, but sometimes you put some distance between yourselves and those bottom teams when you have a good first half like they had. Really hasn't been the case.
No.
So they're in a good spot, but everybody else, like you said, they're just kind of lurking, you know, and I don't know that Matthew Darch is going to necessarily jump at the opportunity to add somebody, give up assets, even a mid-round pick before you really know what you've got. And you think about, you know, when they can't score, you think like, all right, Palmieri's out for the year. Horvat's out for the second time. Is this really our year? Can we overcome these things?
Right.
So, you know, the vibes are really high and it's great, but I think we still need to wait and see for a little bit.
Yes. Ed, what do you got, bud?
DTMR, he says, did Boquist hurt Waz's dog or something?
No, I just think he's not that good. Sorry to say. This is you get guys off the scrap heap like they did with Boquist. They claimed him on waivers last year. And he's, you know, you get a few good games out of a guy like that, but you also realize why he's in, I think it's third organization now since he was a first round pick. It's just,
right.
I think it's just not clicked for him. And if they had a spot on the right side where they needed someone who could carry the mail like that, and maybe you sacrifice some defense, you'd be fine. But they already have one of those guys in Tony DeAngelo. So
yeah,
it really doesn't feel like it's a right fit for him.
And unfortunately, not every waiver pickup is going to turn into Michael Grabner,
right? Or
Thomas Hickey.
Yeah.
There you have it. Dog's probably fine.
Yeah. Okay. Gabe asks, which player gets it the worst next time they play the Isles, Marchment or Rantanen?
I like that question.
I think they're going to see Marchment sooner than they're going to see Rantanen.
You'd have to think so.
And I don't know if anybody's going to fight Mason Marchment. Somebody is going to fight Mikko Rantanen. Because what he did
Yeah.
And it's funny to think back now because what did he do? 2 games later? He got
Right. Yeah. He just went on a total villain streak.
So the whole like, I didn't do it. And
right.
So, and also I think it has to do with like Mason Marchment. Again, he's more of a rat, but he is tough. Mikko Rantanen, someone could probably take him in a fight. I think that's where you're going to see an Anders Lee or somebody like that drop the gloves.
So you're saying the Islanders are too scared to fight Mason Marchment?
No. I don't think it's that. I think it's just, is he the kind of guy you're gonna exact the right revenge with a fight? He's more of a guy like I would like to catch him with his head down and when he's skating up the ice and knock him into next week because he's gonna keep doing the dirty stuff. Mikko Rantanen's not gonna, in all likelihood, not gonna.
I was about to say, well,
maybe not this season, but he's probably not gonna do that again. But you also want to remind him that like you did do this, you did knock our player out for one of our top 4 defensemen out for the entire season, so. You're going to have to answer the bell. I'm curious to see because sometimes guys like that, maybe he'll feel like whenever Dallas comes in, I think it's in March. Maybe he'll feel like, all right, I shouldn't have to fight. Then you might get the Messier elbow or the whatever, somebody skating by you say like you're going to pay for it one way or the other. So I would say Rantanen's going to get it more than Marchment.
Okay.
Agreed.
Well said.
Magician Matt says, thought the idea of putting Mayfield on his off wing with a rookie against Toronto was a tactical error on Waz's part. Your thoughts on this?
I never want to see that pairing again, ever. They were bad.
Not only that, yeah. And I think Mayfield just had a rough week.
He
had a tough week.
He's kind of hit the wall a little bit, and I understand they're trying to find some solutions. Isaiah George, I think, is going to be back soon. So maybe they'll have someone who's a little bit more familiar with playing, someone they can get the left-right thing back. But I think Scott Mayfield kind of is what he is at this point. And moving him to his offside,
didn't work out trying to defend that Austin Matthews last night.
And that would have been, if he was a lefty, that might not have worked out so well. So
fair.
But yeah, I think kind of Waz said it after they sent Marshall Warren down. Like, we're just going to try some things and see what works. They obviously have the waiver exemptions to keep calling guys up and trying out and just trying to catch something that can work. And obviously they don't think that Boquist on his offside with Mayfield is any good. So maybe we'll see what happens. Or maybe like we've talked about a couple of times, maybe that's a spot where Nick Leddy, someone who's a lefty defenseman who's been around, who can be kind of a steady presence, move the puck up the ice. That's a spot where they can bring in more of a veteran and expend a 4th round pick or something like that in the coming weeks.
Okay.
Speaking of that, does Darch made a trade for a D-man? Mayfield and D'Angelo are terrible defensively.
It's not going to be a righty though, because they got lots of those. So yeah, I mean, I think if you want to get out there on Puckpedia and scour the list of lefty pending UFA defensemen who are in their 30s, who won't cost you much, that's probably where you're going to look.
I'll agree with Arthur. Go on.
Sure. Paul Florence, he says, can we win some games in regulation without white knocking every third period? We can't rely on a few players to carry the team every game. Not a long-term winning strategy.
I mean, I think this team just needs to take what it can get.
Yeah.
I think we have to be happy with the wins that they're getting, the points that they're piling up, and if they're not 5-1 wins in regulation, just be happy with the fact that they're, clawing and scraping away at these.
Just think who we're missing.
Right. Yeah. Well, look at the guys that are out, that have been in and out, and again, the expectations going into this year. I think, and I've said it more than once on the show too, is that like they've been in the vast majority of every game that they've played, win or lose, save for a game against the Utah.
And I think if you look at the list of regulation wins, I know that's the first tiebreaker, and you worry about do they have too many wins in shootout and overtime. They're right there with everybody else. I think they're tied with Carolina in terms of regulation wins. So I don't. If they were sitting there with 9 regulation wins and everybody else had 15 or 16, then you could start.
I think
to say,
Philly's more in that position.
Right, you could start to worry about if tiebreakers and if they're like on the cut line that maybe you say like, oh gosh, if only we'd won more in regulation or whatever. Like now, I think everybody's in the same boat. It feels like every other game for every team goes to overtime or a shootout. Yeah. So you just have to kind of go with the flow and get the 2 points.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
We got one from Thomas Panic. It's been a while, Thomas. Originally, the Isles were supposed to host the All-Star game this season. Is that happening next year? And is there any chance that Schaefer isn't the first star?
Well, yes, that's been confirmed. They will be hosting the All-Star game next season after them completely nixing the Olympic send-off that they were supposed to have this year. What the hell would that have been?
I know. It sounded like, we'll give you this. Don't worry about that. And then they were kind of working on details and were like, I don't know what.
Right, why are we doing this?
They're like, oh, so tell us about this Olympic send-off. The league was like, we have no.
Can't do it.
No idea. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. So
nobody said that.
So yes, the All-Star game will be at UBS Arena. That's pretty awesome. Looking forward to that. And I'd say place your bets now. Maybe Matthew Schaefer will be the first star, and because he sure shit is probably going to make it.
Yeah. Jonathan Doe, he says, is Coach Wah's proclivity to putting the quote lines in the blender the only option for offense with this group, or would it make sense to just give a lineup 5 to 10 games?
I mean, you need to have some health to do that, first of all.
Fair,
and second of all, no, you're not generating enough from any of these guys. I gave it a shot with the Russian wingers with Shabanov and Siplikov the other night. It looked okay, not great, but you're just trying to find something that clicks, and it's not even find something that clicks and keep 4 lines together. Find something that clicks to keep 1 line together. And when Horvat gets back, hopefully they'll have some continuity and they can start to figure it out a little bit more.
There you go.
Thomas Boyle in the Metro.
TV.
Who could you see falling off?
I think you said it right. Pitt.
Yeah.
Pitt and Philly.
Johnny said Pitt. Philly I could see going down too. I think Washington's good enough to stick around. I think, like you, Jersey will probably figure it out and end up there in some way, shape, or form. So it'll be the Battle of Pennsylvania to see.
One of those.
I
mean, Pittsburgh, I know, what are they, won 5, the 5th in a row today, and Philly defying the odds, really been good. I'm very surprised that they've been able to keep it up.
But they have been those like extra session merchants, though.
Yeah. Nothing that's incredibly inspiring from either team.
Agreed.
Jeremy Ford, he says, do any of the Eastern teams take a shot prior to the trade deadline about adding players to take a run at the big guns in the West? The good news is you only have to beat one of them.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, they're going to have to. You know what I mean? Like maybe, like Johnny said, save for Florida. If they get healthy and, they get to June to face off against, whether it's Colorado, Dallas, or I'll even throw Minnesota in there slightly, they probably will. They're probably the only team that can go in without really adding, I think. Anybody else, and I know people like Carolina and the Metro, but I don't think they have enough to beat one of those teams out west.
I think that's more a goaltending issue for them, as it always is. And I'm curious to see, who these big guns are. Is Alex Tuck going to get traded if he decides he doesn't want to extend in Buffalo? Is Artemi Panarin going to get traded if he decides he doesn't want to extend with the Rangers? Those are 2 pretty big names, but in Panarin's case, he's got a full no move. He can decide where he wants to go. I don't know.
Go to Florida.
What Tuck's trade protection is. I think Panarin would go to Dallas actually now because of the Tyler Seguin injury, that they have some cap space to add him and a chance to win. So keep an eye on them.
Okay.
And for Tuck, he'd probably be a rental because I'm sure if he hits the open market, other than Panarin, there's nobody that's going to get a bigger contract than him. I'd be curious to see Buffalo feeling good. They finally changed GMs. They ripped off a few wins in a row. If he says he doesn't want to stay there, what do? They just lose him for nothing and maybe miss the playoffs again. Those are 2 to watch. Kyrie's probably 1 to watch for St. Louis. I don't know that Vancouver can give up anybody else besides Quinn Hughes, and maybe Elias Pettersson moves, but that's not really a move that I don't think anybody in the East other than Carolina would want to do. So, it'd be great to see some big names move. I just don't know if it's going to happen.
Okay, fair enough.
Bobbers says, what's your take on Drouin? Aside from very early in the season and last night, he's been largely invisible.
I like Drouin. I've been a fan of his pickup, and I think you look at his numbers, they're actually pretty decent. The only thing I've noticed about Drouin now that's been going on for a while is the guy just can't finish. He gets opportunities, and they're usually in the goaltender's chest, or they just don't find their way into the net. But I think for what he was brought in for, and he had 2 assists last night, he helped out a little bit. He's fine for me.
Yeah, I mean, he is what he is after 10 years in the league. He's a complimentary player. He plays well with guys that are going well, and that's why probably works well with Horvat, because Horvat does a lot of the stuff himself.
Right.
The assist for Schaefer was really just like putting it on a tee and walking out, getting out of the way in the neutral zone.
Well, somebody had to do it.
You're right. But yeah, I think this is who he's been for a long time. He's not a guy who's gonna break a game open or make a flashy play to generate things for himself. You'd like to see a little bit more offense out of him as a veteran guy when you know that you're struggling for offense. And I think that's kind of the knock maybe on guys like him and Duclair, even a little bit of Pajot since he's been back. You need to see a little bit more up the ice, a little bit more aggressiveness from those guys. You know, at the Utah game, I think he had the best scoring chance of anyone in that first period onslaught. He missed the net by about 5 feet on a one-timer, and I'm just kind of like, that's not a goal scorer shot right there.
No.
So he's the kind of guy that if things are going well, he's a part of it, and if things are not going well, you will say, like, where's this guy been? It's just who he is.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I think we got to wrap up questions, Bruin. So if we did not get to your questions, sorry, but we will try to get to them next time. But there is one more thing we have to do before we wrap up the show. That's right. We need to find out what your anthem is, Arthur. So what do you got?
Saved it for the end. Digging back into the archives for one of my favorite bands, Faith No More.
Nice.
From back in the 80s. The Real Thing, name of their first record that everybody loved. The song The Real Thing, because Matthew Schaefer is the real thing. So
well
makes
put,
sense
sir.
to me.
Very nice. Yes, excellent band, excellent song. So if you're not familiar with Faith No More, you should be. And definitely check that song out. Great choice there.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, folks, that's going to do it for Hockey Night in New York from here in Floored Media in the great Rockville Center. That's right, Jay. Pump those fists, buddy. Want to send a big thanks to Johnny Lazarus for joining us tonight. Great spot from him. Awesome stuff. And of course, want to thank our wonderful sponsors, starting with Knock Hockey. Less scrolling, more scoring. Get your board at knockhockey.com. Also, a big thanks to Razor, Kniff, and Launstein, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW-1500 for a free consultation. And Jake, hey, great job with the snake den, man.
Thank you.
Nice job, buddy.
Great hat, too. Don't listen to those people.
Yes, it is a great hat. It is a great hat. Folks, if you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe. That helps us out very much. And Arthur Staple, where can we find you?
Stape NHL on the Twitter, and I'm on Blue Sky and the Daily Faceoff Tri-State Hockey podcast with me, Johnny Laz, and Mike Rupp. Having a good time over there. Not as good as the time we're having here.
That's right, Arthur. That's effing right.
But still good.
Jake, where can we find you, pal?
Find me on Twitter at Jake Radonis, JakeRadonis.
You can find myself at Shawnee Hockey on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can follow the show at Hockey Night NY on all social media platforms. You can check out the website at hockeynightny.com. And folks, Happy New Year. We're in 2026. So hopefully another strong year for the New York Islanders. We'll see. Big test coming up, but thank you so much for tuning in here at Hockey Night New York. For Arthur, for Jake, for Edzo, for Jay, I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night New York. We will see you next time.